Hello, everyone, and here we are live. So, it's another time with the enthusiastic tutor. Let me just quickly share the link with the class so we can move on. So, I don't know, we are good to go. Okay, I'm trying to share. Okay, trying to share the link quickly to the class so we can as soon as we are done with that, we can just move on quickly. Won't be spending so much time tonight. Oh, someone is with us already. Please do well to introduce yourself as you join. But I'm sure that is Mr. Cholas. Uh, he is actually one of these days I might consider giving him the class captain of the class as the class grow. I think he will be the class captain of the class because he's always punctual. I don't know if you can hear me clearly. Oh, good evening. You mean good evening? Okay. Good night. Okay. I let me not be okay. Can you hear me clearly? I'm using my system to stream tonight. I need to know we are live and you can hear me clearly. Am I? Oh, awesome. You said yes. Awesome. Awesome. So I think I've shared the link to the class and they'll be joining us soon. Okay, good morning. Yeah, I was a bit confused here. I was a bit confused. Good morning, Mr. Jolas. I didn't get any of your assignments today. I was expecting to get your assignments today. So I think the link has been shared to the group, so we can just move on. So yesterday we spoke about quite a couple of things, trying to open the material. Okay, awesome. Okay, you send the assignment tomorrow. Okay, not bad. So we are moving gradually, as we can see. Um, Yesterday, okay, no, it's okay, it's okay. The thing with the assignment is that when you are given an assignment after the class, it's just to keep you close to the study, not to keep you too far because most time, 9 out of 10 individuals after a class they just close. The moment they close the material, they might not be opening it again until the next class, which is not supposed to be so. So after the class and after taking some moments, that after taking a break, then you can go back to the assignments, and when you're attempting the assignment now, you have to go through the material, go through what you've been taught in the class, and then you can attempt the material, you can attempt the assignment. So with that being said, so let's just quickly do a quick recap of what we did yesterday. Yesterday we treated unit 5, which was the last module of um, the last unit of module 1. And we said something about how psychologists develop and test their theories. Yeah, and we made mention of about we made mention of about seven stages, and we spoke about the awareness stage, which is the first stage where you have to identify that there is a problem, and that is the very first stage. And we said the second stage is location of definition of the problem, which we said you have to define the problem after you have identified it. Then you have to define it. Then the third stage, which is collection of data. After you must have identified this problem, you find it, then you begin to gather enough data about the problem. And we talked about formation of hypothesis now. After you've gathered the reasonable amount of information about the problem, then you begin to make reasonable guesses. We call hypothesis guesses. Guesses, hypothesis, they are the same thing because this is just a generalized or an assumption, generalized idea or an assumption which requires testing. If you are not tested the hypothesis, then it can be accepted as a theory. So it starts from generalization of the idea, making strategic guesses and hypotheses. Then after that, then you can now test the guesses and which we call hypothesis. And after you have tested it and you see how relevant it is, whether if you are to accept or reject, then you can now verify. The verification has to comes immediately after you have tested your hypothesis. Then the test will determine what it's going to be, and if it's going to be accepted, then it will go through verification. And the last one which we spoke about was testing of ideas, which we spoke about the results of your idea. And okay, we have another person with us now. Please, as you join us, do well to introduce yourself so we can know you and we can move on. So after seeing all this yesterday, we also said something about the significance of an hypothesis. At what point do you reject an hypothesis, and at what point do you accept it? We said the significance will be rejected if it's anything less than 0.5. When we have 0.011, then we reject the relevance of the hypothesis. But if we have something around 0.5 and above, then we can accept the hypothesis, the relevance of the hypothesis. So that was what we ended with yesterday, an assignment we're given. So with all this being said, um, the second person who is with us, please do well to introduce yourself. Go to the comment section and please tell us your name. Oh, Mr. Daniel. Awesome. It's great to have you, Mr. Daniel. Um, so, all this being said, we can just go straight to tonight's class where trying to okay where we'll be talking about intelligence. Intelligence, it's actually something very versatile. you know it's actually very versatile. So let's just go straight into it now. Undoubtedly, intelligence is a concept. Undoubtedly, in the sense that without any doubt, intelligence is a concept of theory. Now, what is a theory? We in our previous class we said, theory is a principle of general ideas, and theory can as well be the principle on which something is based upon. Theory and educational practice. Now, intelligence is a concept of theory and educational practice, meaning that intelligence is a theory in the sense that intelligence is a principle which a basis depends on. It's a general idea of how things are being done. You understand? And intelligence is also an educational practice. So you can come across something like this in the exam whereby you say intelligence is a concept of dash and dash practice. So intelligence is a concept of theory and educational practice. Now, intelligence remains a major concern. Another paragraph. Intelligence remains a major concern of psychology. You know, let's not forget we said psychology is the study of human beings and how they behave in their natural environment. Now, what is responsible for the way human beings behave? What is responsible for, excuse me, how we act, how we behave? Everything goes down to the brain because it's the brain that sends message. That is where messages and instructions are being processed and given out and carried out by the body. So now it's actually the major concern of psychology. That's just the basic thing with intelligence. Now, intelligence is an abstract noun. Now, what is an abstract noun? An abstract noun is a noun stating or explaining something. That's what an abstract noun is. So now when they say intelligence is an abstract noun, that means intelligence is a statement, or intelligence is something explaining a particular thing. Abstract noun is said to be a statement or something explaining some other things. A noun explaining some other thing. Now we have example, we have beautiful and the likes. So we have the early days of this century. Mr. Jolas, yesterday you actually complained about how fast I was. I don't know if this pace I'm going if this pace at which I am on is okay, or I should slow down a bit, and so we can so we can go on as we. I just need to know if I'm too fast. Please do well to let me know so I can slow down. Just trying to uh, okay, so we have that. I don't know if we have taken that down. Mr. Daniel and Mr. Jolas. Okay, Mr. Jolas says it's okay. Also, Mr. Daniel, are you still with us? Okay, now we have in early days of this century, witnessed little usage of the term intelligence in psychology or in the classroom. Now, according to Spencer and Galton, there is an important general ability which is superordinate. When you say something is superordinate, something is supernatural with extraordinary power, and superordinate to and distinct from special ability. Now, say according to Spencer and Galton, there is an important there is an important general ability. Okay, Mr. Daniel said yes. Awesome. Okay, now but equally accepted the theory of a general cognitive capacity that is probably dependent on the number, complexity, connection of the organization of the nerves. And okay, I think this is a definition from Spencer and Galton. And what they are trying to say here is that intelligence sometimes is regarded as superordinate, and although some persons are quite intelligent and they are distinct, and they are regarded with people with special abilities. So that is actually coming from Spencer and Galton. So we have the the technique of factors analysis, which was introduced by Pearson at the time when Alfred Binet in France was working with the French children of different preschool and school ages to arrive at some answers explaining underlying factors of different performance of children. And okay, now to explain this, he said a technique called factor analysis was introduced by who? By Pearson. Now let's take that down. Pearson introduced a technique called factor analysis. Now, if you have taken that down, so and he actually introduced this analysis at the point when Alfred Binet was working in France was Alfred Binet in France was working with French children. Okay, now the case study of his analysis was Alfred Binet when he was working in France with children with different preschool and school ages to arrive. Okay, now the case study of Pearson's technique of factor analysis was Alfred Binet in France. I think that is that for that. And at this point, Alfred Binet was in France and he was working with French children of different age range. Now, the importance of general ability was strongly recognized in Britain and Europe, with while in the US it was questioned. Now, importance of general ability. I think this is another point we should take down. Importance of general ability was strongly recognized in where? France and Europe. Importance of general ability was strongly recognized in Britain and Europe, but it was questioned in the USA. I don't know if you get that, so that we can just move on. So now, emphasis here was laid on breakdown of the specific ability extreme types of actor. Okay, now that's not necessary. So now we have the definitions. Of all the words used by professional, no other word seems so clear when we hear it, and yet is so difficult to define as intelligence. A lot of professionals have tried to define as try to define intelligence, and as simple as it may appear, it has been so difficult to define now. There is a massive research on development of a child. Now, why are they even talking about a child? Now, because intelligence is best studied from a growing child. In early stages of a child, that is at the point whereby intelligence is best studied. Now, there is a massive research on the development of a child. Such research generates explanations to the definition of intelligence, which for Piaget is the concept of growth. So now let's take that down. Piaget said intelligence is a concept of growth. So if you come across this question, Dash said intelligence is a concept of growth. We know it's Piaget. Piaget is spelled Piaget. Or Piaget says Dash is a concept of growth, intelligence. See the same question but twisted up in another form. Now, the concept of growth has been taken up by the environmentalists who claim that intelligence is not determined by heredity but by the type of environment interaction in the history of early childhood. Now, take down this point, please. The environmentalists claims that intelligence is not hereditary. So, when you come across the question of Dash claims that intelligence is not hereditary, so you know that is the environmentalist. Now, the environmentalist says that environmental interaction in the history of early childhood, meaning that the environment of a child while growing in his child in the child growing as a child, your environment will influence how intelligent you can be. And sincerely, I think I agree with the theory of the environmentalists towards the concept of growth, because you can't compare a child who did grew up, was born and bred in places like maybe in the USA or in Canada. You can't compare such a child with a child given birth to in a local place here, or in a local place, or in a place where let me use the word. I don't want to. Nigeria is some part of Nigeria actually local. I want to say Nigeria is a local place. Nigeria is actually a developing country, but you can't compare a child who was given birth to in a local village. I mean, the exposure. Communication, the way both child speaks. If they bring them together, it's going to be different. No matter how much level of education, the difference is going to be there. Though I stand to be corrected, but I believe to some great extent the difference will be visible. So I do agree to some extent to the view of the environmentalists, which says that intelligence is not hereditary, that but the type of environmental interaction in the history of early childhood. So that's what they opined. It is important for you to know that the type of environment and interaction will shape, can imagine, and determine a child's adult intelligence. So that's what happens to majority of us who grew up in villages, in remote villages. You know, it will take a lot of effort. You can't compare the level of intelligence with a child who is already exposed to a lot of things. The level of intelligence of that child when that child grows to become an adult, if the child doesn't become wayward, actually, if the child doesn't go into drugs and crime, you know, the child was properly brought up, and exposed to a lot of things from the early stage of life. That kind of child, by the time the child gets to become an adult, the child is versatile in learning. Is well read, knows a lot of things. You understand? Compared to a child whereby growing up it was in a remote village and he wasn't exposed to a lot of things. So as they have said here, they say that environment and interaction will shape and determine a child's adult intelligence. Now, but you must remember that all children, given the same issue of environment interaction, will attain, you understand, will attain the same level of intelligence in adult life. Very, that's very true. If you give the both of them same environment interaction, the both of them will attain that great intelligence in the adult. So that explains that. So let's just move on quickly. Now, okay, now we have of recent, prominent radical sociologists argue that the definition of intelligence is a social class-based one. Who argue that? Sociologists. A new paragraph now. Sociologists argue that the definition of intelligence is social class based. The definition of intelligence is social class based. These are the sociologists that said so. I wouldn't really want to hold us down too much in today's class because we're going to work tomorrow. Although for me, I'm off work tomorrow. I'll be home tomorrow. I think tomorrow I should have put another tutorial on MTH 105, the continuation of logic and conceptual logic, the more in-depth part of conceptual logic, because what the previous one I released was more of the rudimentary part. I will go more into calculation now in the subsequent video. So now we have that as that social based class. That's what the sociologists find. They argued further that the differences in the social class origins of individuals compel them to undergo differential environmental changes and hence differential levels of intelligence behavior in later life. Had there been no differences in the class structure of society, they argued then, the emphasis will be given on intelligence will most probably disappear as everybody will manifest the same. Now, what sociologists are trying to say is that from the view of a sociologist, that they are saying the environment, there are classes, there are social classes in the environment. Social classes in the sense that we have an average Nigerian, we have a below average Nigeria, and we have above average Nigerian. You can imagine what somebody who's above an average Nigeria will be exposed to. You can't compare to somebody who is even below average or somebody who is an average Nigeria. So all these social classes, what they are exposed to, will actually directly influence on the level of their intelligence. So that's what the social class says. That's why I said it's social class based. Excuse me. So we have, for example, Mukherjee, 1972, show that while attitudes towards mathematics and previous experience in mathematics explain most of the transfer tax variance, intelligence was the least important factor in terms of tax explained. Now, I can see that you okay, it is generally agreed that many degrees of intelligence exist. Definitely, many degrees of intelligence exist. Very true and very correct. So we have that even an imbecile, somebody who has illnesses like chemical illnesses or thereabouts. I mean, somebody is not so fit, imbecile, exhibits one exhibits some manifestations of intelligent behavior. Now, yeah, very true. But when we refer to as an intelligent person, we mean only someone who is at the upper end of the distribution of intelligence quantum, which is IQ. And IQ scores now. Such an individual is one who exceed a hypothetical cut-off point, separating intelligent individual from the general run of humans. So we have that as that. We have observed events in behavior which are concrete things as they be a be recorded and misused. Now let us cite an example so that you can have a clear understanding. Yeah, we're going to start an example so you can have I'm really trying to see through this. Okay, now we observe the difference between individuals of the same background, some chronological age and some previous history of learning in one problem solving. If one individual solves problem more quickly than the other, we say the former individual is more intelligent, which is very true. Now we have and this thereby implies that former individual has something to a greater degree than the later. Exactly. To me, while I was growing up, I was in secondary school. I don't really believe what some persons used to say about some persons are just blessed with knowledge, that they are just naturally blessed in that they just God just bless them and let them to understand things better. Now, hear what psychology is teaching us this night. Psychology is bringing it down to us that don't think that way. The only thing that makes that person to know that thing which you don't know is because at a point in that person's life, that person has been exposed to that thing. He said, if one individual solves the problem more quickly than the other, we say the former individual, we say the former individual solved the problem more quickly. Okay, we say the former individual is more intelligent, which is what we will say, but thereby implying that former individual has something of greater degree than the later. That's just it. It's a matter of what you have gotten to know before I discovered it. So that's just it. It is the something that is called intelligence. Exactly. So that one step ahead, that person is ahead of you, is what is called intelligence. So when people talk, this person is brilliant, this person is that, you should find out what makes that person brilliant is that that person is that thing that you claim you don't know, that person has been there, that person has worked to get there and know that thing. So now when he's talking, you will admire, you will respect, you will honor because oh, this person is intelligent. So if you can also get that exposure he has witness, then two of you will be on the same level. So that's just it. Intelligence is also referred to as the reasoning ability of the individual. Please let's take that down. Intelligence is also referred to as the reasoning ability of individuals. Now, these reasoning abilities are of many types. For example, understanding relations, comprehensions of series, drawing analogies, completing patterns on basis of symmetry and meaningful asymmetry, permutations and combinations, drawing inference, understanding logic, deductive and inductive, verbal ability, and so on. Now, intelligence is also referred to as the reasoning ability of individual, which is very true. The reasoning ability of individuals is often referred to as intelligence. And to mention some types which we just read out. Okay, that's that for that. So we have according to real. So we have real. I think somebody just joined us again. If you can hear me, please do well to introduce yourself, or is it still Mr. Daniel? If it's not Mr. Daniel, then do well to introduce yourself as you join the class. So we have according to real in 1952. Now, there is no kind of performance or behavior which can be described without qualification of intelligence. Who said this? Real 1952. Real 1952 said that there is no kind of performance or behavior which can be described without qualification as intelligence. Meaning that anything you do as a man is proportionate to your level of intelligence. I know we hear things like what you have known, what you don't know is greater than you. But what you have known is not greater than you. So some people behave in a way sometimes you can't blame them, is because their level of intelligence, that is what it can carry. That's what Real is saying to us now. In 1952, that's what it's saying. Now, confronted with such diversity in the nature of intelligence behavior, it is not surprising that psychologists have often failed to agree on a comprehensive definition. Years ago, the editor of Journal of Educational Psychology, London, invited 17 leading scholars to express their opinions on the nature of intelligence. While they achieved some great, agreements, nearly 17 different definitions of intelligence emerged from this symposium. Some of the definitions are, now we have the ability to carry out an abstract thinking. I think you might need to take this down. Definitions of intelligence. 1. Talman in 1910. Talman in 1910 says intelligence is the ability to carry on abstract thinking. Abstract, the word abstract says something that is just there alone. You don't need to push, doesn't need any support. You're just there, you just think about something separate, abstract. Now, ability to carry on a unique, different, and independent thinking. Tama said that in 1910. So we also have the capacity to acquire capacity, intelligence. What does this mean? The ability to acquire ability. It takes capacity to acquire capacity in the sense that it requires enough capacity to be a step above somebody. It requires not just momentum, but willingness and dedication to be a step ahead, to always get informed, to always be intelligent. It requires the capacity of acquiring capacity. Okay, I think we have somebody with us now. Please, you came in a bit late, but I mean, we've not gone too far, so you can just do well to introduce yourself in the comment section, so we can just move on. So we have we've read the definition of Talman, and we've read that of Woodrow. It was Woodrow that said the capacity to acquire capacity. That was Woodrow definition. So now we also have the power of good responses from the point of truth or facts. That's Thorndike. Thorndike. Thorndike said, intelligence is the power of good responses from the point of truth. When you are faced with truth and when you are faced with facts, how do you respond? Is your response good or not? Excuse me. So Thorndike, it's quite a very busy day and I feel so exhausted right now. We might not really be spending much time because it's already 12, it's already to 1, and some persons will be going to work by morning, so we'll not be taking much of our time. So Thorndike said, intelligence is the power of good response from the point of truth and facts. So we also have definition of okay, the Thorndike definition was in 1927. So now we have the definition of Vernon in 1950, which he classified intelligence as description as a biological and psychological or operational. Yeah, that's Thorndike, and that's Vernon. Vernon in 1950, he said intelligence is biological, psychological, and operational. So we have Freeman in 1936. Freeman said intelligence is classified into three places: power of adaptation to the environment, capacity for learning, ability for abstract thinking. And that is the definition of Freeman. So we have that as that, and we move on. Okay, excuse me. Although modern psychologists know much about mental abilities, the difficulties is far from resolved. One possible solution is to create a broad definition that addresses the complexity of the word intelligence. Okay, that is not that is just a different route. Now, Wishler in 1975, Wishler said something about psychology. It's about intelligence. He said it is the capacity to understand the world and the resourcefulness, the required resources to cope with the challenges attached to it. That's a Wishler. That's Wechsler. Wishler in 1975 said intelligence is the capacity to understand the world. This is who talking, Wishler. The capacity to understand the world. Are we there? And the resources, availability of resources to cope with its challenges. I don't know if you get that. Resourcefulness to cope with its challenges. Now we have much earlier, Whistler in 1958 suggested that intelligence is the capacity to act. Who is the same person still suggesting? Is still the same Whistler. Please let's not mix this spelling up. It's Wechsler. Now this same person said intelligence is the capacity to act purposefully, to think standards. People act independently. Sorry, I think I mixed that. Whistler 1958. Whistler suggested that intelligence is the capacity, so it requires capacity to act purposefully, to think rationally. For it to think rationally requires intelligence and to deal effectively with the environment. By this broad standards, people act intelligently when they learn from the past experience, seek effective solutions to everyday problems, and adapt to the world around them. Awesome. That's an awesome definition by Whistler. So yeah, Whistler also said, Whistler now said something about intelligence, which he said it is the understanding of the world and its resourcefulness. So we have that as that. So Whistler also defined usefully overview of the meaning of intelligence, but difficulties still persist. For instance, the issue of value judgment remains, although Whistler used broad term coping, resourcefulness, and rationality. So the three keywords he used: the term coping, resourcefulness, and rationality. Now, they all the same simplify particularly values. You must remember that in the given culture, different circumstances demand different types of coping and resourcefulness. Clearly, what is required of the ambitious distance learner undergraduate student is different from what is demanded of the child who is empowered through who, who is empowered who sorry of demand of the child whose whose employed parents have been living in impoverished condition for a decade. We have many of such children in Nigeria particularly. So it all still boils down to what we are talking about, the environment on as an influence on intelligence. So we have I think this is where I'm going to end the class for today. I really feel exhausted right now, and I'm surprised I can even push through this far. So just take this self-assessment and we'll call it a day. Now, will you describe yourself as intelligence? I think there are a lot of assignments we are yet to submit in the class. So giving us another one now will just be on maybe unreasonable. I don't know. Should I give us an assignment or let's attend to the previous ones? If you are there, please drop a comment. Let me know what you think. So now, yeah, you can definitely refer to yourself as intelligence because it takes only someone who is intelligent to want to learn. And anyone who is ever willing to learn, capacity of acquiring knowledge, it's intelligence, definitely. Because the more you learn, the more your horizon grows. Now, explain why you describe yourself as intelligence. I mean, I just said it all. The willingness to learn goes a long way. So tomorrow we'll be taking today because it's already past 12 to 1. So today we'll be talking about the concept of intelligence. That's intelligence quotient IQ. Everywhere a lot of us say IQ, IQ. Your IQ is low. We don't want to does not even know the full meaning of the IQ. Now tomorrow we'll discuss about intelligence quotient, which is also called IQ. So all right, so I'll call it a wrap. Then we just continue from where we stopped tomorrow. All right, everybody. Thank you, and it's awesome to have you on today's live tutorial. Tomorrow we'll be moving at a very fast pace. We won't be wasting much time. For as many of us who is yet to submit our assignment, let us do well to submit the assignments. Good night, everyone. Thank you for sticking around. And I look forward to seeing you in the next tutorial. Bye bye.